You didn't think I'd do it, did you? I mean, I think that was pretty well layered there. A little bit of emotions. Welcome, everybody. We're back with another edition of the Red and White Podcast, and that about sums it up. There's not a whole lot of highlights, so I'm just going to keep playing the Thayer Thomas punt return because that's the best thing that's happened this season.
Well, he would have had that return if we didn't jump on offsides on a punt. So, opportunity lost.
Yeah, that's how it goes. Yeah, so we're going to be all over the place, but I think the general theme is what the hell. So, but first I want to make a correction. Maybe not a correction, maybe it was an exclusion and an apology. My wife has just started listening to the podcast, and she wanted everybody to know that she was actually a skee ball champion as well. Her and an all-girl team won a skee ball league, and she's like, "Why didn't you mention me?" So there you are, honey. Good job. Congratulations.
Boy, the bloodlines in this family.
I know my 5-year-old's got high standards here.
when they pick up a ball and they roll it and it doesn't look like a championship roll to you, do you like just walk away shaking your head?
Well, they have to do wind sprints and just make them run back and forth across the living room.
Jeez, I need to make myself do that.
I've also got the game streaming on my phone underneath me. So if I randomly start cussing, you probably know why. I don't have Tourette's. It's probably something that Braxton Beverly did.
Well, do we know, is FIU like at least like a sub 300 team? Or do I want to say post 300? Who knows?
It's not officially basketball season yet, so I really don't know. Not for me, at least.
Someone can tweet us after this and be like, here's the real-time RPI from 3 games into the season.
Yeah, I did notice Joe Lenardi already had his bracketology out already, and I think that is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Well, we need to get I think someone had it up before, but we need like a win-loss tracker on how bad his predictions are.
That would be so good. That would be so good. All right, so let's get football out of the way. That's pretty much how I feel. It was cold, and we lost to Clemson, right? Everybody expected we were going to lose. My general takeaway is that, we record these things Wednesday, so it gives me about 4 days to calm down and 4 days to get my hot takes out. But there's still so many stupid mistakes. Like, I don't care that you're young. You don't make so many dumbass mistakes. Like, you should be coached better than that. The guys that are 3rd and 4th string, if you're playing, they're still guys you recruited to play. They should be more fundamentally sound. There's one series.
Are you talking like the turnovers, or are you talking the penalties, or is it just everything?
The turnovers, the penalties, the fumbles, the guys out of position.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
There's one series that just infuriates me, and it was State was down 21-0, and so it was towards the end of the first, and Dexter Carter, Leary completes a nice pass to Dexter Carter. He runs, I don't know, it was like 20, 25 yards, calls back because of holding, like just nowhere near the play. Like, damn it. All right. Second play. Zonovan Knight gets around the corner, breaks a long run, flag coming back for holding. The very next play, Leary drops back and just drops the ball. Like, he just dropped the ball.
Laces out, Leary.
Laces out. Yeah, hold the laces. So that whole series was just like the epitome of what the hell, man. And it was just so frustrating. And then to cap off the game, Tabari Hines makes the dumbest play I've ever seen from a Wolfpack football player, and that is saying a lot.
What?
I've seen a lot of dumb plays.
What could he have been thinking? The only thing that's going to be acceptable is that the grass was wet and he slipped.
Yeah, he fainted or something. I don't know what it was. It was the dumbest thing I've ever seen, and I've seen a lot of dumb things in Carter Finley before.
Well, let me give you something to ponder on, because you make a good point, like all these mistakes. And so Dave brought this up maybe subversively here, I guess, on his radio show. And he said State had a really good scout team when the season started, but now they're playing on the varsity. And these kids playing on the scout team are giving great effort, but the speed is drastically different. And so it sounds like kind of like Dave's comment is basically like the guys aren't ready. There's no way they were ever going to be ready, because they were not just the backups, but the fourth string guys that were running scout team. And so the guys now that you have on the scout team, it's not even helpful, is what it sounds like to me, because they can't even come close to playing at the speed that they need to replicate. And then the guys in the games shouldn't even be playing this year. So I think what frustrates me isn't those guys making mistakes. Like, I'm not going to bust on McMahon for missing on some blocks against Clemson. That's the person that gets busted on is Sculthorpe for, not living up to whatever the team standard is there. Right. What's frustrating is, Carrie Angeline getting a hold on the outside, Lassane getting a hold when the guy's like, I don't even know how that guy could have been involved in the play. Leary just dropping the ball mysteriously like that, but Leary just biffing up the handoff, and then Leary not catching the shotgun snap, right? Like, I mean, we could have at least scored going into halftime. We could have at least kicked it, and we didn't get to, because the ball just like shot through his hands. That's more frustrating to me, because the whole point of playing Leary in particular is his upside is supposed to overcome the deficits. And right now you don't expect it against Clemson. So like, I mean, this Louisville game is really big in the Leary development catalog, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because like, if he doesn't show some pulse here for us, I mean, do you start thinking, should I just put McKay in?
No, Leary's going to be the guy for the rest of the year, pretty sure. I'm almost positive they're just going to ride or die with him, which they should, I think. I mean, I don't think there's any sense in putting in another guy, playing this QB shuffle again, because these guys aren't going to be your future. Right? I think they've pretty much already decided that. And their only hope is that Leary's talent at some point comes through and he is your future. Otherwise, bring in a grad transfer or find somebody else to, be that guy for, the time being until you can get a replacement. And they've shown the ability to do that. I mean, Finley and Jacoby were grad transfers or transfers. So, but there's no way they go back. I don't think they should go back. I think that would be just the optics of it would be even worse than actually doing it. I mean, they would just like they have no understanding of what's going on.
Well, I kind of disagree, because, and this is based on Devin finally getting into the easy part of the schedule, and if this continues. But first off, I don't know what kind of message it sends to your team when McKay won the job, got pulled, I think, way too early in the FSU game. And now the guy that's getting all the starter snaps is throwing the ball away, as throwing interceptions, fumbling the ball like crazy, and is super inconsistent. And I would think, as the guys that have like earned their reps, they would be kind of sitting here saying like, what the fuck? Like, this guy isn't doing anything. And frankly, when you look at the numbers, it's not like his yards per attempt or anything are ahead of where McKay was. Now, again, Clemson, I'm not going to hold that against them. Freak game, right? But Wake didn't look good after being on a bye. Okay. And he had gotten to play a full half of snaps before that game on the road. So now you're at home against Louisville, a team that does have a pretty bad defense compared to everything else you've seen. So I think this is a really important game for him to basically maybe win over the team. Because I'm sure there are guys in practice kind of sitting here like, why are we riding with this guy right now? He's just, and it's not that he's not going to be the future. It's just that he doesn't look like he's ready.
None of them look like they're ready. That's the sad part about it.
Yeah.
Like, not just the quarterbacks, a lot of positions. I think there's a lot of, I don't know, man. Unprepared and that's what coming back to it. The fundamentals, it just seemed like they're all over the place. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's a sound coached football team. And I think that's the issue I have more than anything. Because, you expect to get blown out by Clemson, right? We knew that was coming. And you're just not as good a team as Wake Forest for whatever reason. But just to look inept like they have against, BC and now these other two teams, that's really frustrating to me. And I think a lot of fans feel the same way. I know a lot of fans feel the same way. I mean, the comments have all been the same, right? And I think everybody's given the pass to guys like Leary and some of these younger guys because they haven't played and, like they're young, right? But they're not giving a pass to Dave and his staff because they go out there and, the first play of the game for me, first play game against Clemson, everybody in the stands, I looked at the guy next to me and was like, dude, they're going to run out the middle. Sure as shit they ran and, right guard or left guard, whatever play it was, Jordan Houston, you're running a 160-pound back into the Clemson D-line on your very first play of the game. It's the same play they've run pretty much every game, or at least it feels like they've run that, that first series every game. I don't know, man. It doesn't give me a lot of hope for what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
But these next 3 games are going to be telling.
Do you think they were even really trying, like in this game? Like, and I'll admit, man, it was hard to figure out, right, because of all the errors. But did you notice anything new? I didn't.
No, I didn't expect them to bring anything new out. I think I hate to say they weren't really trying, but they were trying. I don't know, man. That's a good question.
Because
you can justify it like the early games where like everybody always says, hey, they're not going to show anything because it's, ECU and Western but does that apply to this game too?
Yeah. No. So what I'm thinking is I'm looking at the play chart and like, I don't know, 45% of the players in this game were freshmen. And then let me make it even worse for you. So the 60% of the guys that played were freshmen or sophomores. So my guess, especially on offense, I'm just looking at this chart that IPS puts up. Make sure I'm reading this right. Yeah, 20, 40. Yeah, like almost 60% of the players were freshmen and sophomore on offense. So they probably dumbed down the playbook to not all the way down, but basically down, and just said, let's just make this easy on these guys. And so it makes it look predictable. And then it makes it super frustrating when we're being predictable and Zonovan Knight busts off some really nice runs. And then you don't really get rewarded for it. He had that great touchdown run, and that's really good to see. That could really help out this offense. I'm hoping they were just kind of waving the flag and being like, nah, like Clemson, we're not in this. And then Clemson was like, well, we're 5th in the BCS playoffs right now, and we're going to just destroy you. To the point we're running trick plays where we're up 21-0 in the first quarter. Like, that to me was egregious.
All right, so that at that point, I think State wasn't completely out of the game. They had shown the ability to move the ball a little bit and then just do stupid things. Because that was right before they went hold, fumble. Right? I mean, they were going to drive down the field. They had 3 plays with some yards, and I mean, we were never threatening Clemson, but I think it's funny that Dabo ran the same trick play that Thayer Thomas threw the touchdown that we stole from Duke when they ran against Virginia Tech. Like, that play is making its way around the league. A lot of people got on Dabo for running it up, or for
he had to.
He did. I don't even think he did, though. I mean, he pulled out his starters. He pulled out Lawrence in the middle of the third, and I'm sure they went for a couple plays that they might not have, but they got their 3rd and 4th string guys in there. I mean, he put his kid in. They're trying to get his kids some points, some playing time. I have no qualms with that. Yeah. I didn't think anything was bad blood. They could have beat us by 100 if they wanted to.
Let's orient people on this. Ohio State was recovering onside kicks when they were up like 40 points on Maryland. So
right,
like intentional onside kicks. So the college football playoff committee should be like, there should be like a douchebag deduction, on this, like, somewhat.
Yeah.
So I don't blame him. You knew it was going to happen. And to the defense's credit, they did everything they could, starting 3 freshman linebackers and everything like that. They still played aggressive, and I really liked it. I love the attitude that the defense played with. They got screwed again and had to be on a short field. Like 2 weeks in a row, the team, the opposing team has gotten a fumble recovery on the 2 or 3 yard line. That's got to stop.
Right.
That's the kind of stuff where it's just like, at least let that happen in the 3rd quarter. Like, I'd like to get through a 1st quarter and it'd only be like 14-0. I don't even know what this. Sorry, Wolfpack Nation. I've had 2 whiskeys tonight just thinking about this Clemson game.
Well, the basketball team's down 9-4, so it doesn't get any better. Yeah, I thought Zonovan looked good, and I thought the defense played hard, like you said. There were some bright spots, but just so much junk in between. Super frustrating. And I'm going to trigger you right now. Why did they play Nick McCloud? Man.
This is fresh from our segment called Radio Show My God, where Dave Doeren said that they played senior cornerback Nick McCloud because he was healthy and ready, but it didn't go so well. And he's not. Okay, so I'm quoting this from the Wolfpackers recap of this. Doeren is not sure how available he will be going forward. Might need a week or 2 to recover or could miss the rest of the year. This is your number 1 cornerback. Your glue guy of the secondary. He's been injured for, let me get the participation count up real quick just to make sure I got this right. He's been injured since the 1st game. And so he's been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games. And I'm bringing this up because if he doesn't play in the Clemson game, he can play the final 3 games and still redshirt. And you can have your best cornerback come back next year if he wants to. And they just play him because he's healthy. He looks really awful out there. Not like he's personally playing bad. He just doesn't look like he can keep up with anybody. Because you know why? He's been sitting for 8 weeks. And now he's possibly injured for the rest of the year? Are you kidding me? You are never going to win this game. The games that you need Nick McCloud are the next 3 games. Tutu Atwell is a monster. Okay? He is going to be a speed demon. He's going to be the one that everyone should be watching to see if we can stop this guy. And then you got Georgia Tech on the road, which is not an easy game. Like we have looked awful on the road all year. And they are at least somewhat comfortable in their new scheme. Their defense is actually pretty good. So you could have a close game where having your best cornerback might matter. They may have a trick play. They may have just, they only throw 20 or 25 times a game. I'd like for those 25 times to have Nick McCloud out there. And then you got UNC. I don't know what they are thinking.
I don't either. My only thought was they know he's going pro.
Is he?
Or they know he's, well.
I mean, the poor
they
guy's
know he's
injured,
not coming back.
You know? How's he going to have a good test?
Yeah.
You know, there's no tape for him. You know, some people said, okay, he's a South Carolina kid and he wanted to play against Clemson. Okay, well, he's gotten to play against them the other years. I don't think that makes sense to play somebody when they may not be ready. And he clearly didn't look ready. Maybe he tweaked something while he was playing. He got scored on that unfortunate. Man, this keeps happening to Dave Doeren. They get a holding penalty. It's 4th down. They accept the penalty, make it 3rd down again, and then Clemson scores on the next play. Same thing happened last year. And unfortunately, Nick McLeod's the one that got dusted on it, and he didn't even look like he could run.
Yeah,
man, Nick McLeod. So much. He was so critical this year, and to see him go down after the ECU game was just brutal, and just terrible news.
You know, I don't even think the corners have been that bad this year, to be honest. I mean, I know we're playing our 12th string corner, but I don't think they've been bad. I thought they've been okay. I guess the overarching theme with this is roster mismanagement, and I think we're going to talk a little bit more about that. 3-3-3-5 slot guys.
Yeah. I just wanted to say that you do make a good point. A lot of people have been pointing out the DBs and that being a problem. But so far, I mean, I can go back and look at it, but I think we've shut down pretty much every slot guy that we faced. And for those that have blacked out their memories, you know, like last year and the years prior, slot guys have been our nightmare on defense. It's why, in part, that they switched to the 3-3-5 because they just couldn't do it in the 4-2 scheme. And even, you know, I didn't save it, but even Nate Irving responded back about the benefits of the 3-3-5 versus the 4-2 and the 4-3. And it just gives you the ability to have a lot more looks, makes it harder to defend, and it clearly seems to be geared towards trying to limit these passing attacks and make sure that no guy goes off for 250 plus yards like we've seen the last few years. So I think it actually is a good sign.
Yeah, that's what I tweeted out, that the fact that we haven't gotten torched by a slot guy makes me feel better about the 3-3-5. And I stand by that. And I mean, it's a very simplistic way of looking at it. But I think people who are complaining about the 3-3-5 are just using that as an excuse. I think it's an easy out rather than understanding the defense and what benefits it brings. Now, I get questioning why they stay in the 3-3-5 or the nickel when a team like Boston College drops 12 personnel on you, so they bring 2 tight ends in, or Clemson brings in their jumbo package in the red zone, and you're rolling 3-3-5 out there when you have some decent depth on your defensive line. So I get that's a valid question, but the people who are saying blanket statements like the switch to the 3-3-5 has been bad, I don't think there's any real justification for that. Yeah. I think if you actually look, and what Nate Irving said, it allows you to get better athletes on the field and allows you to disguise blitzes and coverages. Now, are we doing that great? I don't know, but that's the benefit it does. It provides you, and you see a lot of teams are moving to that for that reason. So, we haven't been torched for the most part. So I don't think it's a huge concern. It's very low on my list of things that bother me this year about this team. And that's a weird list, but that's true.
Yeah. Sorry, I know. Do you want to talk about the roster?
What else is the radio? No. Yeah, give me some more radio hot takes.
No, I think that's it, really. I got to go back to my notes here. This, I don't know if he mentioned this on the radio show. This might have been actually his from one of the press conferences, but just injury report. After what a crazy moment. What were you thinking when you saw those 3 guys down on the field on one play?
There's not enough alcohol in this stadium is what I was thinking. I wanted to throw some airplane bottles down to Dave and the guys. Like, here, you're going to need these. I mean, that was just like, what are they doing, man? Like, are they practicing too hard during the week or something? Like, what's happening?
I mean,
it's unreal. It's not like it's the flu and everybody's getting sick. Like,
and sometimes it's just when you're playing. Sometimes it's just when you're playing and you're not ready to be playing. You just get hurt. And I think what Dave said was crazy about it is, it said these are happening in games, and he says usually the injuries would happen in practices. And he was like, it's just kind of weird. He said typically, like when you're playing really fast in a game, you don't get the injuries. And he's like, this year it's just a freak accident. So he said, like when he ran out there to go talk to the guys, like he looked up and was like, how could this possibly be? And he goes out and walks up to each guy, and like two of them give him a thumbs up right away. And he's like, okay, all right. So these guys are just like, they're just dinged up and they got to get off for a play. And then I think maybe it was Peyton Wilson was the third guy. And I'm guessing he probably, I don't know. I'm not going to speculate. It looked like it was a shoulder injury, but I guess what he said afterwards, either today or maybe it was on the radio show, but that Isaiah Moore, Calvin Hart Jr., and Drake Thomas are good to go for Saturday. They don't think Wilson will miss significant time, if any. So my guess is maybe you guys can probably pencil Peyton Wilson in as a stone cold maybe for Saturday. But he's not certain about Asus, which kind of sucks, man, because Asus has been playing really well. And, I don't know if he was dinged up before the game and then came in and got dinged up because, they started the three freshmen out there. It was nice seeing the freshmen out there, right? I mean, like, I'm not worried about it.
I really like Drake Thomas. I really like him. Like, he looks a little bit undersized, but the guy knows what he's doing, man. And, for an 18-year-old to be out there and like conducting traffic, man, I think that's impressive. It gives me a little bit of hope of what some of these kids can do in the future.
Yeah.
And I think it's beneficial. We'll probably get into this a little bit here in a few minutes, but it's beneficial to get some of these kids more time because, a lot of times they don't pan out.
Yeah.
And I think you can see right away some of the ones that are going to pan out, Graves, Drake Thomas, Malik Dunlap, some of these guys that can really play. I think there's a lot of positives to take from that.
Well, sometimes
he played his ass.
Yeah. I mean, I really, Drake Thomas to me always looks like maybe he might be missing a step, but his instincts kind of get him there to make up for it. He's making a lot of tackles. I really love seeing just the guys in general kind of chasing down and getting like Etienne on the edges. Like he's going to get his, like Etienne is like so good. It's scary. And, they were praising him a lot in the broadcast, but I don't think Dabo is joking when he thinks he could be like one of the best ever. He just looks special. So it was really nice to see our guys making some plays there. I was just trying to look through this, trying to find the participation chart from earlier. There it is. What's interesting is like, sometimes you get a class and you get a lot of work out of them all the way up until their eligibility is exhausted. Like the Pac-14 class is a great example of that. Like 20 of the 30 guys that we signed that year were here until they were seniors and they were contributing. And then you have other classes where it's a lot more disappointing. Like the 2015 class, you have 18 guys that did not graduate. They're not on the team anymore. So of the 4 that are left, you've got McGirt, Moorhead, James Smith-Williams, and Tyrone Riley. And just to give like a quick, you guys might be thinking, oh yeah, the guys that are missing are, that they contributed and they're gone. No, like it was a really rough class for us. In 2015, the guys that left the team and never really contributed: Brian Sessoms, Vernon Greer, Freddie Simmons, Johnny Frazier, Philip Walton, TJ McCoy, which was a special circumstance. It was a family-related illness. Darius Workman, Aaron Wiltz, Riley Nicholson, Quintez Johnson, Emmanuel Elenga. And then the guys that we did get work out of that were here, it's like you either hit or missed on that class. Reggie Gillespie, Naheem Hines, Jacoby Myers, Tyler Griffiths, who was a great long snapper for us. A lot of love for the special teams. Manuel McGirt, who's still here, but he's going to phased out, unfortunately. James Smith-Williams, Darian Roseborough, Urandias Bryant, Tyrone Riley, Jarius Moorhead, Freddie Phillips. So that class has 8 or 9 guys that played, and then everyone else just complete whiffs. Either
that's brutal.
Some of it's maybe bad just evaluation on the guys. Some of the guys were hurt and medical redshirted. Some had hardships and had to leave the team, like TJ McCoy, which was an unfortunate situation. Some guys had concussions, and you kind of see that for 2015, tough. And then 2016, kind of same thing. There's 13 guys that are off the roster that were part of that class that would have made up the backbone of this team. And in particular, if you look at the numbers, there are 4 defensive backs from the 2016 team that are no longer here, which would have been helping out our numbers. And 3 offensive linemen were also gone. And that kind of is made worse in 2018, where you have 2 offensive linemen also off the team. So, if you had been paying attention to our classes over the last 4 years, 5 years, you'd be looking at the cycle and being like, oh my God, we're going to have to play a lot of freshmen. And we're going to be perilously thin at a lot of spots, defensive end in particular, offensive line, DB. And, a lot of people are kind of wondering why we're playing so many freshmen. Well, it's because sometimes when you miss, not just like the year before, like in the cycle, it's when you miss 2 or 3 years behind. And yeah, sorry.
So no, you're fine. I mean, that's really good information. We want to put that on the web somewhere, because I think it's easier to digest if somebody can kind of look at it. Look at this chart in front of me. I'm like, holy crap. But what I want to talk about on it is, again, I'm going to say this again, roster mismanagement. Like, you see this coming. Like, there's a reason that I've complained about this being year 7 and being in this situation where you're playing that much youth, right? It shouldn't be this way. And now you're seeing why. Like, Doeren gets a lot of credit for developing guys and identifying talent. There's obviously something here too, that they've really swung and missed on a lot of guys. Now, if we should get deeper into it and see like who recruited these guys, who was the one that ID'd them, like, there's probably something else here that we could probably uncover with more time and more desire. But the thought is, it seems a little strange, right?
Yeah, I think the biggest impact is Pac-14 was not only a really exceptionally good class and had just tons of playmakers and guys that played. They immediately soaked up starting spots and never let them go. So it kind of makes sense that 2016, 2017, you're kind of starting to be in those kind of gaps where it's like, okay, I can't really sell playing time. And maybe that's why you see 13 guys out of 23 are gone, and 8 out of 12 in 2017 are gone. Or sorry, 8 out of 20 are already gone. And then you see it kind of firing back up in 2018, 2019, where that playing time becomes available again. I mean, that's probably a natural ebb and flow. I think we just really struck out in 2015, 2016. Just more so than usual.
I wonder how much scheme has to play into this. And the reason I say that is because, or if you keep everything close, right? Doeren notoriously kept games. Pat Andres just hit 3 threes in a row, by the way. We're actually leading now, or we're down by 1. So if I get distracted, it's catching me out of my corner of my eye. But scheme, right? If we're keeping all these games close and you never get a chance to put your young guys in and see what they can do and get them on the field and get them reps, right? Is that, I mean, in your mind, do you think, hey, if we blow out some of these teams, we could put some of these younger guys in, take advantage of this 4-game rule, get some more snaps, and maybe you uncover some of these problems?
Well, wasn't the 4-game rule introduced last year? Yeah.
It's new. It's new.
Probably could have helped. I mean, I don't know. I go back and look at some of these guys, and it would be really interesting to see where they ended up. If any of these guys, I think a lot of times they left and they went lower, or completely out. And, aside from like Thad Moss is, I think, the only one that left and went up, if that makes sense. So maybe it would help, but it might have also just shown that these guys weren't ready. And maybe that's why, maybe one of the complaints we've always had was like, oh, how come we haven't seen so-and-so? You're up 3 scores. Why aren't we seeing more backups in the game? Could be that they just weren't ready. Maybe they weren't good enough.
Yeah, I think not good enough. But if Doeren gets credit for putting him in the league, he's got to get credit for missing on an entire class, basically. Yeah. I think that's a fair criticism.
Yeah, and TOB had a class like this that was just god awful. Yeah. I think it was the 2012 class. By the time the 2012 class graduated, only 6 people remained from it, and it wasn't a big class to start with, so it was a contributing factor into why his era kind of tailed off, and also why we struggled really early. The reason we struggled in 13, 14 was because the guys, they completely whiffed on a class. It just is what it is. And just, there is a little thing that you kind of look, if you see the chart, if we post this later, that might catch people's eye. And in 2016, we didn't take a running back. And in 2017, we took 2, and they were off the team by the following year. So if anyone was kind of wondering, man, how did we end up last year with just Gillespie in person? It's because we swung and miss on 2 classes. And that's where, I feel like the last class or 2, we've done a better job. I'm looking at the numbers. We basically did a better job of recruiting a full class of players. And it just looks like maybe we kind of took a few off in 2016, and it really caught up to us. And we need to probably go back.
Johnny Frazier.
Don't get me thinking about Johnny. What could have been, man? Tarzan is what isn't that what Doeren said? It looks like Tarzan. And
yep.
Gosh. I hope he's doing okay. I think I saw that maybe he was in law enforcement. So hopefully everything worked out for Johnny. I know it was a tough move, and some stuff happened back home, if I remember correctly. So yeah, roster management. It's the lifeblood of the program, man. And it's kind of why we are where we are. It's why people are excited about the future. But you're still kind of late, I guess. You really need the 10 guys and the 12 guys from the 2016, 2017 team that are here. You need them to be contributors, and you need them to really back you up. It's gonna be questionable. Let me ask you something.
Yes.
Slightly different topic. I kind of got on a rant on this on the message boards. Let's say this year ends and we don't get bowl eligible, and the offense is just stagnant the whole time. Do you think something should happen coordinator-wise on offense?
Oh, man. I think that should happen regardless, unless it comes out in the last 3 games and they just light the world on fire, right? I mean, I think that's the only way that this staff makes it through this year being intact. And yeah, I mean, if you think about, and I think I said this to somebody, I might have been on Twitter or something, but these next 3 games, like you said earlier, they're not gimmies. And Doeren has to win 2 of these next 3. And I'm not saying that from his job is in trouble, but if he doesn't, he's definitely going to have to make some major changes, and he's going to be in jeopardy of losing a lot of fans, because the casual fan is not going to care about your injury excuses. They're going to look at a team that's dropping balls and committing penalties and, just doing these things. And then they're looking at a team that's, not competitive. I mean, there's no way to put that. They're just not been competitive in these last 3 games. So these next 3 games are going to define a lot of what's going to happen in this offseason. And like we said last week, we're not pro fire Doeren. I don't think that's the right mentality to be in. If he loses all 3 of these games, he's going to be 4-8, and you're going to lose a lot of fans. You're going to have a new AD hovering. It's going to. I wouldn't be shocked if he got fired, and I wouldn't be shocked if he didn't get fired. Right? I mean, it can go a lot of different ways, and I think we don't really know what Boo's thinking right now, but I think at the very least he comes in and says, "Listen, Dave, you need to can this NC State offense and find something new."
Yeah.
I think that's reasonable.
So I thought it was interesting that, I don't know if it was all the season ticket holders or not got this, but there was a questionnaire that was sent out to LTR holders, I guess. And it had a bunch of questions about, game day related, like outside of the stadium kind of thing, questions and, security, things like that. But it also had questions about on-field performance. And I found it interesting. I had never heard about a questionnaire like that going out before. Maybe they do this every year, and they're just trying to gauge things. But I thought it was interesting that came out. A lot of fans are of the opinion that NC State can't possibly buy out the offensive coordinators and the staff on that side of the ball and make an investment in football. And I would just caution people to not have that opinion that NC State is just completely dire in the funding department. Right. There's a new AD who is literally going around talking to all the major boosters, and he's gauging what they're willing to invest in, getting their opinion of the programs, all the programs, not just football. Our chancellor has a big vision for NC State, and he happens to be a big believer in athletics. I had a former colleague's father was the athletic director at Purdue and spent a lot of time with Randy Woodson. And he said, he's really into athletics and he's got a big vision. And you have new money that's coming in from the ACC network. There's money that comes in from your bowls and championship performances and basketball, NCAA tournament appearances for the conference. And there's money coming in from beer sales, which obviously must be plentiful right now with the way we're playing. So I really think it's interesting that people think that if Boo, that Boo couldn't go to the board and say, I've got a vision and it doesn't include these coordinators, this offense. I have this is what I see for this program. And Dave Doeren is a part of it, but Dave needs the financial backing to get this over the hump. Not for him, but for his staff. So I find it hard to believe that they could just light the world on fire for these next 3 games. But if you're going to do it, these are the 3 teams to do it against. If Leary can get things under control, if the running backs are healthy, if the line kind of gels here right at the end, I could see it. You win those 3 games, I think people feel a little bit better. But if you lose them and you keep losing them in the first quarter, I do not understand this concept of we can't buy out a Des Kitchens, and let me be clear. I really like Des Kitchens. I always thought that Des would be the next football coach, the next head coach. I think he has everything that you need to be a head coach. I think he just might not be a good offensive coordinator. He might just be in the wrong job. And yeah.
I think what you're saying is exactly right. And I think in the same regard, if they go out in these next 3 games and they're not competitive in the first quarter, there's no saying that Boo doesn't go into that and all right, days out. I need somebody who's going to, win. And we'd get all sorts of reactions for it. But I mean, I can see all sides of this thing. I'm torn where I land currently. I can definitely see an athletic director doing that. I don't know Boo well enough to say he won't, but I don't know well enough to say he will. I think it's these next 3 games are super important. And one of the reasons is how much improvement can you expect for next year? Because they are really bad right now. Now, you look at what Satterfield did at Louisville so far this year. They're playing really well. They're just a better team, right? And they're competitive and all that. I mean, there's no saying that we can't do that, but it hasn't been done in the past, right? It's a bit of a slower process here. And one of our listeners wrote this really well thought out email, and I'm going to figure out a way to share it probably after the Louisville game. But one of the quotes was, as I've been taught in many leadership and management classes during my career, the best indicator of future success is past success. And I read that and I was like, that's exactly it, man. Like, is there going to be a drastic change? And I can make that argument that no, I don't expect a drastic change. Maybe maybe more improvement. Maybe the schedule falls the right way, but Louisville's getting better. These other teams are getting better. And, you're going to have to be exponentially better than them if you want to, put all your chips on this 2020 and 2021 seasons. I mean, I think that's, Boo's sitting back looking at it and like, all right, well, Dave's not going to do it. But if I bring in young hotshot and he's got this talent now, that's a quick injection into winning. I mean, I think there's a real argument to be had there. And one of the things people always say is no wins against ranked opponents. So teams that finish ranked at the end of the year. And a lot of people say, well, they were ranked at the time. So, I mean, I get it. It works both ways. I understand at the end of the year, it kind of indicates, hey, they're not that good, but also you beat them. So that's why they're not ranked, So there's a bit of that. And that's just where I'm torn, man. I don't know what side of the fence I'm on. And I think it is because everybody really likes Dave Doeren. I think it's really weird. And, Stuart Mandel's tweet today was his mailbag about why is Dave Doeren not on the hot seat when basically all he's done is win a Sun Bowl. He had 2 9-win seasons on the back of soft schedules, and what did they get for it? A Sun Bowl.
Beat another.
And I get it. I mean, I get it. It's a fair criticism. Now, it may be a bit out of context because, State's been historically bad and, nobody's won 9 wins. I get it. But, the 2018 season to me is still very disappointing. So all of these things can be true at the same time. You can have some success, but you can also be disappointed in it because there's an opportunity lost. And I've been rambling for a while there, so.
I mean, I'll say this. That's a funny thing about the Sun Bowl, right? Another one of the games where the head coach was fired beforehand.
Right?
Dave Doeren has had incredible luck at that. Last year, the last 3 games, basically, you get Petrino fired before the game, you get Scotty Montgomery fired before the game, and then Fedora is getting fired after the game. And then... Jesus Christ. Yeah, I mean, I'll say this. I feel like the defense could be like, oh man, we're playing all these freshmen at cornerback. They haven't folded in my mind. They are playing hard every game. That game Saturday, they could have given up, and they seem to be going out headhunting, and I appreciate that. They are trying to instill a swagger there, and I have confidence that the defense will be good next year. My issue is that you are going to have the same problem next year, where the offensive line is going to be very thin and the depth behind them is going to be freshmen. And, you'd really like to see us go out. I mean, I know it's not our style, but I think they need to go out and try to get some grad transfers on the line. Even if they're not going to be great players, we need some old depth there because it's missing. And, I'm not saying go get JUCOs. I'm saying go find another Selfo, right? Or Skelfo, or, just a badass old senior center that wants to play.
It's cell phone. He's a loyal listener to the podcast.
Yeah, my bad, Joe. Hey, Joe. I always appreciated you looking like you had a dip in during the game. Dude, that man, really, we could. I don't have a problem with Grant Gibson this year, but I think that's what you're kind of missing, right? Is there's no, unfortunately, leadership on the offensive line. The guys that you thought would have been giving it just don't seem to really be popping yet on there, like with Sculthorpe and Fed Jackson, and they could call in and say, hey, we've got freshmen playing out at tackle, and they make us look bad because they're making mistakes. Actually, could be the case. So you just really need it to come together. I really don't want to fire anybody. It just doesn't seem like the offense is working, and
no, it's definitely not
working.
And
it really hurts then to go see like Drinkwitz leave and him having really great success. What was that line in the article? Like basically, like he's got more Power 5 wins than we do this year. He also lost to Georgia Southern. I didn't realize that until I was listening to the broadcast earlier. So, screw you, Drink. You're riding on the coattails of great success, just like Dwayne Letford does.
He's gonna hot take. Drink's gonna ride that job all the way to Arkansas.
Gosh. Good for him, man. God, it's 35-34 right now. How is this? This is gonna be one of those years.
Markel just airballed a short jumper. One thing, what our listeners' long email said at the end, and I think it was really well said. What I'm trying to say with all this is that when you look at the wins and losses, it becomes really hard to support any narrative where one asserts that Dave Doeren regularly outcoaches or out-schemes other coaches at peer institutions, Power 5 schools. Every coach has a scheme, a system, a philosophy, but not every coach's system results in a competitive advantage. And I read that and I was like, that's spot on. I mean, I think that's exactly it. I think if Dave Doeren had a team of 4 and 5 stars on his 2 deep, he'd be hard to beat, man. I think he would grind out these games Big Ten style. And, it's a fair criticism to me on both sides of it, man. I think a lot of people are disappointed and just how bad this rebuilding year is. I'm one of them. I think they're really bad. And I think that's disappointing.
That's an interesting. I'm just thinking about it now. Just kind of looking at that depth chart and thinking through it. Right, we had a 4-3 the first year, and then we went to 4-2-5 for 4 or 5 years, basically. And it looks like that was because there was no depth in the program. We didn't hit on it, but Tom O'Brien, I mean, he just left a turd in the punch bowl for us as far as available guys to play. And so part of it is like, I think his scheme was just like, man, we just don't have the guys, and we got to just play around the scheme. So, I mean, I appreciate the fact that he was willing to change to the 3-3-5. People who say that Dave Doeren is stubborn, I don't understand that, because I think he's loyal. I don't think he's stubborn. Like every year he seems to tweak the staff, and, I mean, going from Canada to Drinkwitz couldn't have been a bigger change, in my opinion. And, you just want him to realize that the experiment of trying to protect a young roster, let's just take that as the example, right? I wanted to protect my quarterbacks and give them stability. It doesn't look like it's working. So I think just people want to see that there's at least consideration to change. And people, I think, really want him to succeed, and they want the university to pony up and basically give him that coordinator staff to get him over the hump. Because if he can win, I want to hear, there's nothing like that I would like pump through my veins more than hearing him give that "we're a blue collar, hands in the dirt" kind of speech after beating the crap out of UNC. That is what everyone wants here. That's the kind of talk we want to hear. He embodies what you want for an NC State coach. And I just feel like maybe the university needs to finally pony up. And maybe that's what Boo's doing. Maybe he's going around saying, hey, we need money. We need money in order to get this guy what he needs to win. Do you want to do that? Do you want to support this guy or not?
I think that's a good question.
I'm pumped up now just thinking about
it. I think there's really some merit to that. I think he'll pony up. It's going to be a really interesting offseason. I really have no idea which way it's going to go, but I know things aren't going to stay the same. But what I will say about your commentary is that Dave's gotten that stigma of being stubborn because of the defense and Huxtable, right? I mean, I think it's been okay. I mean, not great. And I think people have seen that for a long time. I was listening to an old podcast that I did. I was trying to find an interview. And one of the questions I asked him was something about how what kind of job Doeren was doing. I was interviewing a Football Scoop guy. And I prefaced it with, yeah, but Dave Huxtable has been an issue for us. And this is, it's a repeated narrative that Dustin and I used to talk about since the beginning of this podcast. And that's where Doeren gets that stigma of, hey, he's stubborn. I get it. I think he kind of tailed off on it. But he said, NC State is a place where you should win. It's got everything you need to win. And he was very PC about, we need to see how this year plays out. It was the middle of the 2016 year, I guess. But he's saying the same thing. You got to win. There's nothing here, the support, the money. It's here to be a big enough program. Everything you need is here. And he was raving about the city and all that.
Did he give us a sleeping giant tag?
No. Should have. I want to get into some of these. I got some anonymous messages. I'm not going to read their names. Some folks that wanted some things to say, so they send me DMs, which by all means send them. I think it's fine if you have something to say and you don't want to put it out there.
He's being nice. I called you guys beta wolves. You guys got to step up. Leave your name out there.
First question. This was like an 8-parter, so I'm just going to read through some of them kind of out of order. I feel it's a major disappointment in recruiting not getting one or two of Evans, Murphy, Cowan, Bigley, Jones. Do you feel the same? No. We said this before is, when's the last time Clemson doesn't recruit the number one player in the country, supposedly, with Desmond Evans? I think a lot of people think he's got bust potential. And you look at the guys that State recruited last year, Savion Jackson, CJ Clark, Josh Harris, and Terrell Dawkins. I mean, those are all 4 stars. Yeah, so not a lot of chance to bring in that level of depth, I guess, or bring in some of those guys. I mean, it's just you're not selling PT to those guys. And it doesn't mean they're not going to be good players, but that is not my red flag indicator of, hey, recruiting sucks. He goes on every year. I feel like State should get 10 of the top 20 kids in NC. What are your expectations? I think that's a little high. I think they should get a good amount.
This. No. Even when UNC is horrible, they get like 3 to 5 top 10 guys in the state. Like Bunting was pulling in those guys when they are terrible. So I would never expect us to get 10 of the top 20. One, because I think outside the top 10, it becomes a very the 15 through 20 guy is probably the same as the 25th through 30th and beyond. So I don't get caught up in outside the top 10. Everyone starts looking the same. And then when you think about it like that,
Right.
UNC picks up those guys for whatever reason. I don't know why any football player would go play there from a football standpoint. I get it from basketball. And then Clemson and the other guys come in and pick off the top guys too. So we should in like a hypothetical world, but in reality, there's too many built-in advantages for UNC and the top tier guys like South Carolina, Clemson, etc.
Right. What are your expectations for state in recruiting? Mine are to be on par with South Carolina in recruiting, finished with a 4-year average class, somewhere 18 to 22 in the country. I think that's reasonable. I don't think we're there yet, but they got to win. And we've talked about this before. They need to rebrand to a degree where they're more sexy or more fun or more interesting. I think that has a big part in it. And winning will do that. Winning cures all, but also being exciting. I mean, unless you're really selling PT or you're selling to a kid, hey, we need you to come because look how bad we are, which has got to be their pitch this year. I don't
think they're selling. Look how bad we are. I mean, he's got balls. I'll give Doeren that on the recruiting trail. Yeah. I mean, that's really hard though, man, because think about it like this. I mean, South Carolina, it's just them and Clemson in that whole state. And so that means there's a lot, not just two guys picking over the talent pool, but also that means a lot of people are putting money in those two programs. And that's an advantage, right?
Yeah.
The big issue with North Carolina is because it's not a dog shit state like South Carolina, more people want to move here and there's more universities. And so that's a tough comparison. It might be more, I don't know, is that us? Is that oh yeah, that's here.
That's you.
Yeah, see, I had a hot take and they're sending the fire department. It might be more, we should be more, maybe like Virginia Tech, I think is actually probably a closer program to us where there's some smaller schools that are going to pick off some guys and there's a lot of talent in the state, but it still gets kind of rated by everybody. That seems more kind of like us, I think. But yeah, I would love to be South Carolina. They got a lot of people in that stadium, a lot of money.
I would like to be, where was I going to go with that? I don't know.
The next one, maybe the next question.
Yeah, I'll come back to it, I'm sure. I'm so pissed as a fan. I look at these teams at a similar average 4-year recruiting class that compete so much better. I think Dave Doeren can spot talent. Well, that's where I was going to go with that. I would rather be a team or a program that can identify talent better. I think what we've touched on is how many misses they've had. So maybe not necessarily the high recruiting rankings, just being better identifying, talent from top to bottom and less projects. That's what I was going to say. I think Dave Doeren can spot talent early, but they lose recruits like Simpson, Kaba, Moose to better programs. We need someone that can land them, sees potential consistently winning 10 and going toe-to-toe with Clemson's year 7. And then after the A&M launch, which I knew was going to be bad, has gotten worse with recruits, the product in the field. Recruiting matters so much. Look was consistently in the top bowls. Well, the part that I really agree with there is, and it's kind of an underlying theme, there's perception. And, the A&M loss, I think that really was a really bad setback for how things are perceived for some of these guys like Moose Jr., right? He was never coming here because his dad didn't think we were big time enough for him. And I think that's a hard pill to swallow. And you see that because you get your ass kicked by Texas A&M. Where does he go? Texas A&M. I think if you're more competitive in that game, maybe that perception starts to change. But I can't blame him. As a dad, I want my kid going the best place possible for him. So I really hate that we missed out on that one, but he was never coming here. Yeah, I don't think. I think that's why.
a fundamental shift to happen 3 or 4 years ago in order to get a guy like that. I mean, that's just a reality, right? I mean, you ended up with Kelvin Harmon because Spurrier got drunk and left the set,
Right. Right.
Yeah. But at the same time, like Texas A&M, what are they right now? They're 6-3. They'll beat South Carolina and then they'll lose to UGA and LSU, right? Like, I mean, it's perception, and you're always going to be fighting against it. And part of it is because you kind of hit on it earlier, right? You don't have a fun offense. You don't have something that you're using to attract those players. And that's just not Doeren's style right now. And
yeah, it's a weird place to be, but
why are these guys so negative in these questions, Evan?
Yeah. I can't imagine. I think State needs to improve the run game more overall in the program. Why are we not more creative in the run game with schemes like counters, kicks, reps, and other runs? This is something we probably beat to death, but I mean, I agree. I think you need to do things to get. Well, yeah, the offensive. He's typing in the document here. The offensive line stinks. I don't think they're that awful. I think you need to be more creative. I don't know why you're not, running 4 wides and delayed draw or something. Just do something a little bit differently. If your offensive line is not good, then get your guys to the outside. Do what West Virginia did. Get them to the outside. Make some.
Yeah, but that only
your fast
like
guys
for like one game for them. I mean, this is what I'm saying is
okay.
First off, in the next 3 games, please make it work. But we just don't have the guys to block. I mean, it's as simple as that. Like, the guys aren't ready to play at this level, and it's just you need. Maybe it'll be different, right? I mean, Bam Knight looks healthy right now. Looks more healthy than he has all year, and maybe he can make up for those deficiencies and they can start doing some stuff. But I think it's kind of what Doeren said earlier. His scout team is playing with the first team right now. And
but that's been like, this has been all year. That hasn't been the case.
No, I'm saying
year.
Now. No. I agree. I'm saying today.
Yeah, I mean, I get
now. It's like, now. Yeah, okay, we're done on that front.
Well, yeah, now he's got a valid excuse, but you don't have that same excuse. A couple weeks ago, it wasn't that bad, and maybe you're playing some youth, and you lose a couple guys, but again, it's way worse than it should be.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, right? The next 3 games, I think we've hit on this enough. This is the opportunity to show you why this offense is worth keeping. You can say, like, okay, we're finally on. Look, we're dust as far as having bodies, but we're at least facing teams that are in the same stratosphere right now. And if they don't show you that, then deep thoughts need to be put onto it. But I think without the O-line, we just can't make up for the fact Dylan Otreath shouldn't be the only tight end that you need for blocking on the run. There, I'm done. That's the problem.
Yeah. I see other coaches getting more out of teams and programs. I see DD is maxed out and not competing with top 25 power programs. I like Bill Clark at UAB, Mike Elko at TAMU, a couple other guys. I don't think State needs to abandon defense because they're not Georgia or Alabama. I'm not sure what that means, but I see Kansas State, Iowa State, Wisconsin, other non-elite recruiting teams playing good defense. Yeah, I mean, those are almost the exact teams we've mentioned before. Wisconsin, right? I want to be Wisconsin. That's all I want to be. That's my expectation for this program. That's my goal for this program.
Interesting. I mean, he's mentioning, I guess he must be talking about the defense, right? Elko was at Wake Forest and then got picked up by Notre Dame, and now he's at Texas A&M, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on at UAB, if this is like a one-off or whatever. Brian Harsin at Boise State, Boise State is a powerhouse. They've just been so good for so long. It's hard to really take that. If you grab their whole staff and move them here, I don't know if you replicate it right away. I agree that Satterfield would have been great here, but like we weren't firing Dave Doeren last year in order to get Satterfield. I'm glad he didn't go to UNC.
Right.
That's all.
Yeah, me too.
I agree. Yeah, it'd be great to be those teams though. Kansas State, come on, man. I know you're upset, but Kansas State, we can't. The Kansas State is what it is because they were living off of a JUCO pipeline that you can't replicate anywhere else. There's so many JUCOs there, and God, I'm blanking on his name right now. The old dude that just retired. Yeah, that was his lifeblood. And that's why they never got beyond where they were. They were always good, but not great because you're relying on JUCOs. I don't want to go that route.
Yeah, they have a good coach now. Kleiman won a bunch of national titles. There's that weird little pipeline from Mount Union. I forgot who was before him. Matt Campbell or Jason Candle. One of those guys is really good. But he has that weird pipeline of guys going from Mount Union to Dakotas and winning and keep winning. They've got that thing.
Just man up and hire Bob Stitt. Let's admit it. That's the way to go.
I love Bob Stitt. Yeah. What in your mind would be the best identity offensive defense for NC State? I would like State to be a very physical running team where we could take the pressure off the QB, yada, yada. Defensively, okay, 3-man front. Yeah, what kind of identity you want?
One that scores?
I want to be Wisconsin. I want to be Wisconsin that maybe can pass the ball.
It's like some teams just seem like they are like regionally positioned to be a certain team. Like Wisconsin with all those corn-fed offensive linemen. Boston College with like the most hard-nosed offensive line. Like that's why Tom O'Brien thought he could come here and win because he's like, look what we're doing at Boston College. And then he said he got down here. It's like, oh, the guys down here in the South are different. And by what he means is like the offensive lineman recruiting pool is, it's soft. It's more athletic. It's just not as hard nosed. It's just a different kind of skill set. It would be great to run the ball. I guess it's funny. I would much rather see like an advanced pass attack, and I would love to see. I have no problem with the air raid. I would if for whatever reason Dino Babers was to like stop being the Syracuse head coach, I would take him as our offensive coordinator immediately. I think his offense is really fun, and the problem with him is up in Syracuse is there's no talent. I mean, I think it's amazing what they did with obviously Eric Dungy. I mean, one guy made them a 10-win team basically.
I can't believe he didn't leave last year. I mean, I thought he was gonzo, but I guess there was no opportunities.
Or he's like waiting for something specifically that he really wants. Is he from Texas?
Yeah.
Like he came from the Baylor tree, right?
Babers? Yeah.
He's probably eyeing something down there, I'm guessing.
Yeah. We got a call I'm going to play so we can talk about that one. Here you go. You haven't heard this yet.
What's up, guys? Will calling from right off of 6 Forks Road in Raleigh. Got a FMK for you. And I know you guys are a PG-13 podcast, so that's an F, marry, kill question regarding possible new offensive coordinators. So if Dave Doeren has the balls to let go of what we have now, Noel Mazzoni, Chad Morris, recently fired from Arkansas, or Evans' boy for life, Matt Canada. Anyway, interested to hear you guys' thoughts. I will hang up and listen, and love the pod. Night.
So that's Will from the Fire Ice Pack podcast. I appreciate that. MFK, Noel Mazzoni, Matt Canada, and what was the other one he said?
Jesus Christ. I started doing them in my head and I completely forgot. Oh my God. Yeah, Chad Morris.
Oh, Chad Morris. Yeah, so obviously I would marry Chad Morris right now. Yeah, I mean, he's looking for a job, so I would absolutely bring his ass in. I know Arkansas was an utter failure, but I'm not sure how much of that was on him. I think he knows his offense. He groomed
Arkansas
Deshaun Watson.
Brett Bielema. That place sucks.
Yeah. I would fire Noel Mazzoni and kill Matt
wow,
Canada.
interesting. I was gonna F Matt Canada and kill Noah.
Well, Canada solely because he kept forgetting about J-Sam, and I take that personal.
Is he saying
Like,
we're firing the guy, or is he using the? Is he just saying that to be nice?
No, yeah.
Oh man,
MFK.
you know Matt Canada's going to be a mean guy in the sheets. Mazzoni. Oh my god, right, I'm just going to look up Mazzoni right now.
That guy went all over the place, and everybody he's an offensive genius, and then it failed, and then it failed, and then somehow he went to did he go to the CFL or somewhere, and then he was just highly regarded. I'm just like, this can't be the same guy. Yeah, and it was so weird.
I feel like he doesn't even have a Wikipedia page. The first thing that pops up was explaining the Noel Mazzoni offense. I was like, that's not a good thing. Where is he right now? Let's see. He's at Arizona, offensive coordinator and quarterback coach. Oh my god.
Yeah.
His webpage, his Wikipedia is so short. That's never a good sign. Ed Orgeron. Oh, that's right. He was with Ed. That's right.
Yep. He's been all over the place, man. He was weird.
He's kind of like that. Norm Chow is kind of similar, right? He rode a couple minor successes and made it a long way. Good for these guys. It's amazing that these guys are still employed. Yeah. This is like it's the same reason you're looking at Colin Kaepernick is getting this workout this weekend, right? And you're like, I mean, we played DFS, so we probably see the dregs of the quarterback pool more often than other people. And it's like, how are some of these guys in the league? How is Matt Schaub still a quarterback? Why does who is the UNC quarterback that just seems to keep getting workouts? Yeah,
TJ
Yates. Never good. I'm calling you out, NFL. Yeah. Step it up.
I do like seeing Mitchell Trubisky burn at the stake.
Why?
Yeah, he's awful.
Why, Bears? Why would you have drafted him given the other options? Anyways, that's another podcast. Great question.
Yeah. There's the last question I got here is, if you were solely in charge of NC State football, what would your expectations be, and what would you do moving forward? Oh yeah, hold on. One last offensive coordinator that y'all should look into, and one of the messages opened my eyes to him. Bill Bedenbaugh. He's Oklahoma's co-offensive coordinator, which I don't think co-offensive coordinators is the problem. It's who's the co-offensive coordinators. It works at other places. But look into that guy. He has a really interesting story. He's Hal Mumme, Mike Leach coaching tree. So really interesting. I wanted to point that out. But if you're solely in charge of NC State football, what would your expectations be, and what do you do moving forward? That's on you.
Well, if it was me, I'd hire a little guy who coached at Texas Methodist University. You guys might know Coach Eric Taylor. Okay. NC State can't lose. I mean, my expectations for NC State football, you should be able to compete with pretty much anybody. This fan base and just the attitude that the school has, we should be better. We should be I always think that we should be like Penn State or Georgia. And not that we necessarily are going to be like a blue blood program, but we should have that kind of attitude. I feel like they're kind of like our Spirit brothers in different conferences, except we're like the redheaded stepchild of the group.
Yeah.
If I was Boo, I would be saying, hey, there's a lot of changes in football. It's modernizing. What are we doing to stay ahead? And I mean, we say it all the time. I just think this offense doesn't really suit putting butts in the seats. And I think people want to see a more fun product. And it's fun to win at the end of the day. But if you go back and look at it, we have been just feasting on teams that turned out to not be very good. And I guess I would challenge whoever my coach is at the time and say, are you putting an exciting product on the field? Is this offense, is this defense doing what needs to be done in order to, I don't expect you to beat Clemson all the time, but I want you to be competitive. Do you need 4 turnovers in a game to have a chance to kick a field goal at the end to win? Or can you go toe to toe with these guys? And I would be asking that in every sport. What does it take for you guys to compete, and how do I get you there? And I feel like Debbie did a really good job of resetting the whole athletic department and getting the university as a whole lifted up. And that's really great. But in the end, football makes up 80% of basically your revenues, and basketball is the other 20%. And if you're lagging in football, the rest of the university gets hurt. If people stop coming to games, if people stop buying season tickets, if they're not buying the merchandise, et cetera, et cetera. So if I was Boo, I would be having that conversation with Dave at the end of the season and say, what do we need to do to win more other than get healthy? Because I don't think that's just the answer. And then we'd see where it goes.
I think that was perfectly said. You need to win, you need to be competitive, and you need to be interesting. And I just disagree so much with he's won 9 games. I get it. Yeah, I get it, but his ACC win record is barely above 400. And to me, that's not good enough. And maybe he was or is, I'm speaking like he's gone already, but maybe he is the guy we needed to build that foundation. And I think he's done a decent job. We've quoted some of the roster mismanagement, but for the most part, he's elevated the amount of players. He's elevated the thought, the perception that he can develop guys into the NFL. It's the other parts of it that are just not coming together on the field. It's not interesting. He's not branding the program in any way that is going to be super attractive to top tier talent, things we've talked about. I really like him. I like Dave as the face of the program. I wish he would figure out the assistants and maybe change the philosophy a little bit, be more, like you said, score more and implement a system that is more interesting, that is going to be more fun to watch, more, I don't know, just different. I mean, if you look at the schools that people talk about, like Oregon wasn't always that great. They got fun when Tedford came in there and Chip Kelly was the offensive coordinator, and they scored a lot of points and they were flashy and did all this stuff. Baylor was the same way. Art Briles came in there, scored a lot of points. They beat up on a lot of teams. They were competitive in the games. Even if they didn't win a lot of big games, they were competitive in all those games. And I think that's something that we're missing. I think it's a fair criticism. And I think we've been saying that quite a bit. And, if I'm Boo, I'm doing what you said right now. I'm putting what do you need? And then if Dave doesn't give me an answer that I like, then I think you really have choices to be made. He's not irreplaceable. He hasn't done anything that another good coach couldn't do here. I think he's done some good things, but as a fan, as a season ticket holder, I want to win. Like, I want to be interesting when we do it. I don't want to be the laughing stock, right? I don't want to be the butt of the jokes. And I think that's why fans are frustrated, because that's where we are right now. Injuries or not, right? You got guys like Mandel, right or wrong, looking down at you and saying, he's beat a bunch of teams that everybody should beat, but you're not beating any of the good teams. I don't know how you dispute that. And somebody, and I think it might have been the long document we got, and he said, he was in school when State beat Texas, or they went up and beat Syracuse and Donovan McNabb, and had all the beat FSU. You have all these games that you can point back to that are like signature wins, right? And you can look back and like, hey, they really beat a good team, or they really, that was awesome. I don't know if Dave has that moment. I don't really remember it. Like, beating Notre Dame's great. They were 4-8 that year. Beating Louisville with Lamar Jackson. That's probably his best one. I think that's
it for sure.
And in 7 years, that's, I'm stretching to pull that out, So, like we said, I don't expect a huge change these next 3 games. I hope I'm wrong, but the next game alone is going to dictate a lot with what happens this offseason and how much pressure is applied. Because if we're getting smoked by Louisville in this first half and the stadium empties out again, that is a bad look, man. And I think Boo is it's gonna ratchet up Boo's process, whatever that may be.
I think that's a really good point.
And on that uplifting note, I think that's all we got. The basketball team is currently losing 3-0.
Oh my God! I was
say,
like,
49,
they took the
40,
points off.
48. They scored 3-0. They took all the points off. There seemed like a bunch of turnovers.
We should give a half-ass Louisville update. Okay, so just quick update, everyone. They're 60th in S&P Plus. They have a really good offense, according to that, and their defense is trash. So we're kind of in that same spectrum of they're kind of like what Wake is. When they played each other, you kind of saw they were both kind of similar. High-scoring offenses, terrible defenses. So what I see here is they're 112th in scoring defense, 66th in red zone defense. They're 46th in third down defense. And they're bad at third down conversions. They're not that good at red zone offense. And they're 49th in scoring. So I think if we can stop Tutu Atwell from just getting those 80-yard touchdowns, we could at least have a close game. But at the same time, if we don't do that, it's going to be a long 3 quarters, because I think the first could be pretty brutal again. And that's our high-level take against Louisville.
So SP Plus has this game as a tie. Would you take a tie if they offered it to you right now?
Man, I guess a tie doesn't help you for bowl eligibility. A tie would be improvement. So yes, I'll take a tie. Could you imagine if this game came down to 2-point conversion overtime? Oh my God.
Oh God. Oh my God. There's a lot of subplots in this game with Ledford leaving and all that jazz. I think that'll be interesting to see how salty Dave is, because we all know salty Dave is the best.
He's
going
to know, look, we should be able to defend the stretch run. This might be the one game where we should know everything about their running attack. So it'll be heartbreaking if they're breaking off big runs.
Yeah, I agreed. We just got a comment on Twitter. Robert says, last year's Wake Forest game was Dave Doeren's Rubicon. Win that game as a 17-point favorite and close out Louisville, UNC, ECU as they did, and NC State is likely in a New Year's 6 bowl. But they didn't, so here we are. At some point, you have to come through in certain games. I think that's exactly what we just said. People feel that way. You got to win, man, and it's super frustrating. There's some weird possibility this team still ends up 8-5. It's like be a goddamn miracle, but it's also possible this team ends up 4-8.
This game, if you can win this game, my God, does it make everything easier? If you win this game, you can, it is going to be a really short week. And Dave was talking about this. This is really crappy scheduling from the ACC. I don't know how they did this. We've got a night game at home, and then we have to travel for a Thursday night game. So basically, you have a 3-day week. Yeah. as far as the team is concerned. So if we could win this game, I really like our chances. But if we lose this game, I could see us lose Georgia Tech too, just because it's a short week and just being on the road. The team is so discombobulated, it seems, when it goes on the road. God.
Yeah.
You just got to laugh
That's
at it.
exactly it. That comes across as, and I know it didn't because I listened to the press conference and it didn't come across this way, but when he says it, it just sounds like he's setting you up for another excuse. And we're a week away from having to hear that because Georgia Tech is,
who are they playing?
A week from now, but
hold on, let me take a quick look. For some reason, I thought that they had a bye, but I don't think that's the case. They are playing. Okay, they play Virginia Tech at 3:30, but they're at home. I mean, this week definitely favors them from being rested. But, we just got to – they are so one-dimensional. I mean, this is like Georgia Tech is that classic game where it feeds into his defensive scheme. And, it's just unfortunate that they're kind of playing good defense right now.
The one stat I wanted to point out, since we didn't get our IPS reference in, Philip Danford from IPS pointed out Football Outsider stat has a power ranking defense play stat. And what that is teams rushing on 3rd and 4th down, their conversion rate. And NC State is dead last in the country, giving up 100% of plays on 3rd down when the team rushes for the first down.
On any down and distance?
Any down and distance. 100%. So it doesn't matter if you're 4th and 40, run the ball and you're going to convert. I mean, that's basically what it is. That was a really cool stat, and I wanted to mention it. I just thought of it as you
That's crazy.
said something. Basketball team's back up by 4. So let's end this podcast. Go watch his last 10 minutes so we don't have to hate them too. All right, folks. It's going to be called on Saturday. I hope to see you out there. If you can find me, holler. I hope to see the offense out there, more importantly.
Go Pack.
Yeah, go Pack.